Hi y'all, this is just a video to go over the Project 3 assignment sheet. I'm trying to anticipate questions and give more detail here. Project 3 is meant to tie together the threads of our writing and learning this semester: narrative writing, summary writing, primary research, and responding. Everything you've written over the semester for both major projects and participating classwork is something you can copy and paste and revise for use in your project. Make sure to edit anything you take and make sure that you are revising so that paragraphs written separately still flow together. The minimum word count is 1,200, which will come out to around 5 pages double-spaced, but I believe you'll find that you're going to have a final project that is much longer than this. There's no maximum word count, but as you are pulling together your work throughout the semester, please make sure that everything you're taking is truly fitting into the final project. Don't include material just because you have it. Include it because it helps you make a point in your final project. So, the elements of Project 3. You need an original title for your project, and I suggest you might find it by combining Project 1 and Project 2 titles. Academic titles often utilize the colon format, where the first part is cute, creative, or broad, and the second part is more serious and indicative of this specific research question. My title combines the phrase from Tim Urban along with more research-oriented title of my Project 2. The introduction will be about your personal story related to your topic. As with Project 2, this should be narrative. That means your story. And the end will come to your research question, how your story experience led you to wanting to learn more about this topic. You can copy as much of Project 1 as you'd like, but please make sure you're editing it for correctness and revising it to really fit with the rest of your project. Rather than ending your intro with a thesis, you'll end with your research question, what you wanted to find out. This is probably very similar to your Project 2 research question, if not exactly the same. Secondary research. Driscoll defined this for us as research done by others, so articles that we find that are written by other people. For this, we're using only our in-class readings. There is no outside research for this paper. I will reject, as in a grade of 0, papers that bring in other secondary sources. You shouldn't be citing or quoting for anything that isn't an in-class reading here. Pick 2 of our in-class readings that fit with your projects 1 and 2. You'll need to write a 1 summary paragraph for each of them. That's 2 paragraphs total, 1 about each, and then write a paragraph or 2 bringing together these sources. If you're citing 2 sources talking about basically the same thing, you might be comparing to come to a conclusion about which you agree with more, like Urban and Lieberman. If you're looking at sources that are doing different things, like McCabe and Carol Dweck or Omid Fotouhi, you'll probably be looking more at what growth mindset adds to the specific discussion McCabe brought us. We looked at some good sentence templates when we started summarizing, and again when we looked at quotes, and I recommend you look at those templates as a way to compare ideas and quotes from 2 different authors. So that's this document, and it's section number 5, introducing contrasting arguments. Primary research, describe methods and share discussion. You may find that you want to add more to your discussion once it's no longer directly following your results, but in general, you can copy-paste from Project 2. Your conclusion, also your discussion, here's where you tie together these threads. Answer your research question and show how the different parts here, your experience, your readings in class, your primary research, helped you do that. Answering your research question is your thesis. So what is the primary cause of procrastination, or the overall attitude about education in your family, or whatever you wanted to learn? Pick primary points you want to make to back up your thesis and try to draw evidence from your experience, your readings, and your primary research to show how this all comes together. The specific paragraphs you chose to build in your Project 2 discussion, the points that were interesting enough to elaborate and speculate on, are probably a good starting point for paragraphs here, too. You need to end with an idea of why this project is important and a what now. That might mean giving ideas for your audience to do, and it also might mean thinking about what other research you might like to do and what else you might like to know outside the range of this very limited project. What topics might you research more? How might you gather more interviews or primary research data? And a works cited page. You'll make a draft of this using the Purdue University Online Writing Lab website MLA guide, which is one of the best sources for getting information about formatting. I don't mind if you want to try EasyBib or something like it, but you need to be in the habit of checking against a proper guide because generators are often incorrect in small and sometimes large ways. I've posted my sample project 3 for you, where I'm continuing the project 1 and 2 that I've already shared with you. You may recognize quite a bit of my project 1 and 2, and you can look at my summaries and comparison paragraphs to get a sense of how the secondary research can go. I suggest you compare the paragraphs in my primary research section to those in my conclusion section. I've attempted to follow a similar structure and tie together all the ideas I've presented. This is a reminder list of all the sources you can choose from for that secondary research part. Again, besides your interviews, these are the only sources you're consulting to make your points in this project. You can go back to our past weeks to find them and use your reading logs. It's very important to me that you go back to our resources on writing good summaries. I need you to be writing with the author's main idea in the first sentence, then choosing details thoughtfully based on what you want to say. Quotes should ideally be the built-in variety as discussed on the handout I've made for you, and you need to follow citation rules as discussed there too. And this is all linked for you to follow and be able to find very easily as you're working on Project 3. You'll assess yourself much as you have in the past 2 projects, and when you turn this in, it will also be with a reflection essay. We'll have a couple of assignments in the next 2 weeks that are geared towards getting started and giving me a way to give you some feedback on the first parts of your project. So just dig in and do your best on those and let me know if you have questions I can answer.